Welcome to Boomer Bongo Boulevard. This is season 2, episode 16. I'm Mike. This is Ron. And Ron, we're going to talk about the effects of James Bond. We talked about just plain old James Bond last week. Now we're going to talk about the after effects of the earthquake that was James Bond, all the spinoffs and the TV shows that copied him. And you've got Maxwell Smart and Agent 99 behind you. But that was just a total spoof. Buck Henry's total spoof of James Bond and all the
along
things
with
that
Mel
went on.
Brooks.
What?
Buck Henry and Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. That's
Created
right.
it.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And I don't know. Should we start with that? Say what you want to say about it right up front. As oh, by the way, hit the subscribe button. We got 29. Come on, you could be number 30. And you
Yeah.
want to say hi to Steve and Don and Hubert and our mysterious poster. And here we go.
And our brother Randy.
Yeah,
he always
Randy's
watches
out
it.
Randy's out there. All
And
right.
actually, I have to give him credit for the James Bond thing, because we were talking one day and he goes, "What is wrong with y'all? Where is James Bond, man?"
That's true. That's right. The icon of the
Yeah.
boomer.
He said, "Man," he said,
Except that, hey,
y'all
James
miss
Bond.
like the giant truck in the room, you know?
Yeah. Hey, but unlike us, James Bond wasn't afraid to die.
Yes. I'm refreshing my Fresca, my wonderful refreshing
Oh, you're having a Fresca? Oh, look at mine. Look
Fresca.
at my heart
A
mug.
boomer, a classic boomer drink, Fresca.
Oh, Fresca. Yeah, I like that. I just got a heart mug. Look at that.
All right.
Yeah, I've got. You know, I don't think I've used the same mug twice. I may have. I've got a lot of mugs, buddy.
I don't think so. I've used the same shirts and hats many times, but never the same background, I don't think.
Well, now this is my second time not to wear a hat because I don't know. I should have worn one in honor of Odd Job last week, but I just didn't do it. That's the way it goes. All right, Ron, talk about spinoffs. Talk about
the first thing I think about when I think about shows or movies that were influenced by James Bond, the very first thing I always think of is the opposite of James Bond, which would be Agent 86, Maxwell Smart, because everything Bond was, he just wasn't. He was incompetent. If it wasn't for his slick, smart partner, 99, he would have died many, many, many times. But kind of like Andy Griffith, always assisted Barney Fife and was kind of his crutch in law enforcement. 99 was definitely his crutch. She was his crutch, his fake legs, his hook on his hand that he was missing. She was everything.
Well, you know, though 99 would have made unlike 86, 99 would have made a wonderful Bond girl.
Yeah.
A perfect Bond girl, in fact. As they often were aiding James Bond in some of his endeavors and did an able job of it. Often got killed for their trouble, but 99 wouldn't have. She just survived.
Well, there's so many things that are still around from Get Smart, too. Like, I know I still use it, and I know a lot of people do with the Mystic by that much.
Would
Sorry
you believe
about that, Chief? You know, I still hear people doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, John Lovett's the liar character was almost a direct steal from Would You Believe This? He just didn't have the Would You Believe, but he would just he would make up lie after lie.
And loving it. That was one of his other ones.
If you can't get into Get Smart, I just don't think you have a sense of humor. And the great thing about Get Smart, just like the Bond, and one thing they got right and that they took from Bond and expanded on it, made it funny, were the running gags we talked about. Now, Bond didn't have running gags, but they had running themes. They had the little episode where M would show them the new equipment, and they did the same thing in Get Smart.
Q would show them new equipment.
Or Q, right.
Yeah, Q
would show them the new equipment, and of course they had the running gags in Get Smart, like James Bond had just the running themes, the car chases, and I don't think they ever had a very many car chases in Get Smart. I guess they
really didn't. Now he had many cars. They changed cars with every season.
It's
It would
true.
be a similar car, but it was always a different color. It was like, one time it was red, then it was gold, then it was like sky blue, and
Right.
it was really funny. They did a great homage to that in the movie, the kind of underrated movie Get Smart with
Oh, it was. It was great.
Steve Carell. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they had the final chase scene in the movie, and he started out he took the car that was like the original Maxwell Smart car and took it out of the museum piece at the headquarters and started the chase. He wrecked it. Well, long story short, he drove a copy of every single car Maxwell Smart ever drove in the series during
Oh
the chase.
no.
Yeah, every time he wrecked one, he would come across the next car would be the next Maxwell Smart mobile or whatever.
The great Don Adams. The great
Yeah.
Don Adams. A great takeoff would have been having Don Adams get in a car chase every once in a while, and he'd just be a terrible driver
Yeah.
instead of a great driver. He would kind of a takeoff on. What was the fairly recent spy movie? And it was a comedic one as well. Can't remember. It was something on Netflix. But
Yeah.
anyway, one of the characters is racing for the driver's side of the car, and they triumphantly jump in on the driver's side and realize they're in a European car, and the steering wheel's over there on the right. That would have been a
That's pretty
perfect
good.
Maxwell Smart routine. But anyway, all right, we're hey, let's stay with comedy. Another show that you wouldn't expect unless you think about it, unless you really knew the show, that really got a lot of mileage out of James Bond, the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes, they did. My favorite joke on that show.
Oh, man. Jethro Bodine, double
Yes.
aunt spy.
And what's so funny is, I don't think I would have ever known that naught meant zero if it wasn't for Jethro, because he never said zero. He said naught, naught,
Double aunt.
naught, naught, seven.
Double aunt. Yeah. Oh, man. And he did, Jethro even worked in a little odd job homage with his steel.
Yeah, that was his running gag that they did every time he would forget that he had filled his hat with lead. And he would get mad. Somebody would say something to make him mad, and he'd go, "Oh, boom!" Get that look,
Knock himself out.
And then they would show, hear him hitting the floor, and they would show him, and he'd be like on the brim, on the floor.
Well, the thing is, then he didn't need to explain any of the jokes. Everybody knew the jokes because everybody knew the James Bond references. That they didn't have to be explained. You
He
have to
even
walk.
fixed up the truck. He had he hit something, and like a wash tub came down over him when he was driving, and
Did he ever
he
put
pulled a rope, and one of the shotguns fell down and fired. And
Did he ever have an ejector seat in the old truck?
Oh yeah,
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, he shot
I couldn't
Granny like
remember.
1,000 feet.
Man, that's funny. That was brilliant. And the Beverly Hillbillies cashed in on that more than I'm surprised more comedy shows didn't cash in on it, but only
Oh, they
Beverly
would bring
Hillbillies
up
could
the
just,
Not Not Spy thing at least once a season, I think.
yeah.
That was one of his running things. He did, the Double Knot Spy, and because he had all these careers, like he was going to be an astronaut or something,
Right.
but it was always the Double Knot Spy and his Hollywood mogul persona, Beef Jerky.
Ron, my favorite takeoff on the James Bond theme that showed up on TV were the series, the Wild Wild West,
Mm-hmm.
Artemis Gordon, James West, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Both of those both were spoof-like. They played it kind of for laughs. They weren't 100% serious, and you could just sit back and really enjoy it. Of course, the David McCallum and Napoleon Solo. Ilya Kuryakin and Napoleon Solo. David McCallum played Ilya Kuryakin, and Napoleon Solo was played by Robert Vaughn, who I met once. I met Robert Vaughn, and he came into a Macy's when I was working at Macy's years ago, and he was just as sophisticated, just as cool as you would think, and same voice. He did not do anything actory with his Napoleon Solo voice. That was Robert Vaughn's voice,
Mhm.
and he kind of handled himself the way
Yeah.
he really, come to think of it, Robert Vaughn, I don't know if he was really much of a super duper actor. He was just himself in everything I ever saw him in. He
There
was,
was a lot of guys like that. I was going to say Robert Culp is another one of those
yeah,
guys.
he's always Robert
That was
Culp.
always kind of a spy and always kind of a debonair guy, you know.
But I don't know. Were you a Man
Robert
from Uncle? Did you
Wagner,
ever
same thing,
did you
you
ever
know.
see him? Do you ever seen him Man from Uncle
I have never
show?
seen one episode. I've seen a lot of clips and stuff. That
Right.
was a little before my time.
Yeah, it was. It was. Well, it was fun and it was funny. They played it for
Yeah.
laughs, and of course, Robert Vaughn and David McCallum played well off each other. And by the way, for you folks that may be a little younger, the David McCallum later on was Ducky in NCIS, and
Hmm.
so he had a very very lengthy career.
As did
Went
Robert
from
Vaughn, he was in a lot of stuff.
oh
He,
yeah,
he, he was always popping up in movies, TV
oh sure.
shows, you know.
Just always at work, and he just had such a distinctive look. And if you needed a sophisticated, often bad guy, he was a good
Yeah,
guy in Man from Uncle. But if you
yeah,
needed a sophisticated bad guy, Robert Vaughn was your guy. You couldn't do any
yeah.
better.
He was a bad guy in a Superman movie.
Right? He sure
Hmm.
was. He appeared in. He was in the one. Was he in the Superman movie with Richard Pryor? Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's
And
right.
he probably had the best line in the whole movie, which wasn't a great movie, but it did have one great line from him where uh, he was talking to Richard Pryor. He goes, I told you to go kill Superman, and you couldn't do that one simple thing.
It was simple direction.
Yeah.
The execution was a little
Yeah.
tougher. That's for sure. They also had the girl from Uncle. I mean, that
Yeah.
only lasted a year. Stephanie Powers in that.
Mhm.
Later, she was in Heart to Heart.
Yeah.
But I watched it, and it was not
Yeah.
too bad. But I think that was kind of toward the end. You can
Yeah.
kind of tell when the James Bond uh, shows, James Bond like shows were beginning to fade out. Is
Yeah.
when color came in. It all kind of started in the black and white era. The Man
Yeah.
from Uncle, I think its first season was in black and white, and then as the years went on, it faded. I mean, it faded out fast. You can only do
Yeah.
so many spy stories, and
Oh,
after a
yeah.
while, it just all kind of turns into the same thing. You got another I Spy. You mentioned Robert Culp. I
Yeah.
Spy and Bill Cosby got
Mhm.
started there, and the infamous Bill Cosby, and but Robert Culp, who just was always on TV, always had a show.
Yeah. And he
And
was like a CIA agent on The Greatest American Hero. He always kind of
yes,
stayed in
yeah,
that.
that's right.
Yeah.
Which once again was, I didn't even have the Greatest American Hero down, but
Yeah.
that had little touches of James Bond because the spies and everybody that was
Oh
involved.
gosh, I just thought of two very obvious ones, and they're English, and they were imported over here during that time, and that was the Avengers.
Right.
That,
And what the
yep,
same?
and a show that was called Danger Man in Britain, but over here they called it Secret Agent.
Well, actually, that's three. You got the Avengers
Yeah.
with Diana Rigg
Mm-hmm.
as Emma Pill and John Steele as
Mm-hmm.
Patrick McNee. And by the way, I didn't know this until I did a little research, but the Avengers started out and had been on for a few years before
Yeah.
Diana Rigg joined it. It
Mm-hmm.
had always had. It had always had.
It had Honor Blackman was on there, the one that played Pussy Galore.
Right. the the thing about the Avengers was it was just a man and one. I think it got popular because it has to occur to people that watch James Bond and like, well, what if a woman? I mean, women actually historically the best spies
Yeah,
were women.
because they didn't expect it.
Well, and they could
Yeah.
they could wheedle in. A nice looking woman could go places that a guy couldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody was going to like her. Somebody was going to want
Yeah.
her around, and they were going to talk
Yeah.
to him. And Mata Hari
Yeah,
was a famous real life spy, and we have
Or Mrs.
Chinese
Steele with
spies
the
even
cat
now.
suit.
Yeah, that show up. But I just don't want to lose. But there were three. It's The Saint with Roger
Yeah,
Moore.
I was going to mention the Saint as well, with a future James Bond.
Yeah, that's
Roger
really
Moore.
getting everything intertangled when you start talking about The Saint, a television program, a British show.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned the Avengers. And what was the other?
Secret Agent.
The prisoner.
It
I'm
was
sorry, Secret
renamed,
Agent.
yeah,
Secret Agent Man.
Danger
Yeah,
Man. Yeah.
yeah, Danger Man.
But
Which,
it
well,
had
Danger Man
the
was
best theme song,
right.
Secret
No, 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 no,
Agent
no.
Man.
That's my song of the week. Stop. Come on. You know I had to be the song of the week. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you're getting ahead of ourselves here. But I never watched. Here. Since you skipped ahead a little bit, here's how good the Johnny Rivers theme song from Secret Agent was, or Danger Man, the British title, and then when it came to U.S. TV, they called it Secret Agent. They didn't want the dumb American audience to miss the point. This is a show
Yeah.
about a secret agent,
Yeah.
but I was never a big fan of it. I think it was a little too serious. I liked it
Yeah.
things to be a little lighter, but I always tuned in for the theme song, and then I would go to another channel.
I used to tune in to Wild Wild West because I loved the starting with all the little drawings, doing different
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And they would add stuff as the show went on, you
Well,
know.
we kind of skipped over the Wild Wild West. I think Wild Wild West is probably the most watchable of all those
Hmm.
shows. I can sit down now and really enjoy
Yeah, it's
a Wild
fun.
Wild West episode. Um, I don't know if it was just Robert Conrad. Maybe it was. It was. I don't know. It was a very well made show. Robert Conrad is a surprisingly underrated and enjoyable actor, even though as an individual he always came across as being a little snotty. I don't know if you remember the commercial Robert Conrad did where he
Yeah.
had a battery. Knock it off my
Oh, he's
shoulder.
trying to be the tough guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and
He was sort of like, to me, sort of like the Pete Rose of acting. It's like
right,
you
yeah.
respected what he did, but you were just like going, God, I just can't stand that guy, man.
I don't know if I want to be his friend.
Yeah.
But a lot of people liked him. They liked him well enough. He just, when you get
And just me
outlined,
personally.
well, I don't know if you remember. One of the most famous things that ever had on quote reality TV, the early days, one that would have gone viral has gone viral even in years
Yeah.
after it happened. Is Robert Conrad and Welcome Back, Kotter. Who is that?
Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah, they had this. They used to have this show where TV stars would
Battle of the
get
Network
together.
Stars.
Battle of the Network Stars, and Robert Conrad got into it with the old Welcome Back Cotter dude, and they were really arguing back and forth, and they decided to settle the dispute by racing 200 meters, and and
Yeah.
and Kaplan just killed Robert Conrad,
And blew
just
him away.
smoked him. Oh, it was hilarious.
I remember you saying when we were watching it about how when he said, I tell you what, let's me and you race. And Gabe Kaplan just went, okay. And when he did that, you went, uh-oh.
Well, it's like somebody in a
He
party.
knows something.
Let's go outside.
Yeah.
Let's go outside. The other guy goes, all right.
Yeah. Turned out old Gabe was a pretty good athlete as it happened.
He was. He was. Well, he. I don't know if he's still doing it, but for years after he stepped away from acting, he hosted a sports talk show in the Los Angeles area. Maybe he still does. He certainly
He's a
did for a
professional gambler is what he does for a living.
Oh, that's right. He a
Plays
poker
cards,
player.
poker. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's always been a sportsman, and Robert Conrad looks like an athlete, but he just isn't that good. I mean, he wasn't that day, that's for sure. He just couldn't do it. But hey, if you can't be an athlete, look like an athlete. That's one way to look at things. I'm trying to go through these. Another spa type show, one that had that lighthearted background, like probably came the closest to capturing the Bond essence, was Robert Wagner. He was in a show that was on for a couple of years. Fred Astaire was a co-star, played his father. Was It Takes a Thief?
Yeah.
And they played it serious, but hey, if they could work in a quip, they would. And that's kind of how James Bond was most of the time.
Yeah.
And they really captured that with and that has, to me, you never hear anybody talk about that show. And I watched it fairly regularly. It was not a bad show.
Yeah, it
of
was
course,
a good
Robert
show.
Wagner.
Yeah.
You notice how many of these people that were in these shows had long careers. Robert Wagner was on TV right up until the last couple of years. He had a recurring role once again on NCIS, which was the home
And he was
the
in all the
place where.
Austin Powers movies and was hilarious.
Oh, he's got a kind of a shady background. I mean, he's tied in with Natalie Wood's death and all that kind of thing, and there were questions about it right up until the end of his life. But I think am I killing him? He died, right?
No, I don't think he's. I don't know. I don't know if he's dead or
Yikes!
not.
Well, he doesn't have long left if
No,
he's
yeah,
still alive.
he's on up
Bless
there.
his heart. Robert, if you're still out there, we hope you're alive. But I don't know.
Oh, my wife got me noticing this. This is one of his things, and he does say this a lot in almost every show he's in. Robert Wagner always says something like, "Beautiful,
Yeah.
wonderful." He always
Hey,
just kind
Ron,
of has that demeanor, beautiful.
we're leaving out the movies. Dean
Yeah,
Martin had a whole series of
yeah,
well, three, I think,
yeah,
playing Max Helm, a secret agent that
yeah,
just played it off for laughs, and another secret agent that basically played it for laughs was James Coburn, Our Man Flint. He made
yeah.
two. Our Man Flint, and In Like Flint, and they wanted him to do a lot more, but he was like, no, I've done enough of that, and he stepped away from it. But so the copycats, and that always happens in TV. It doesn't always happen in the movies, but
The Flintstones even did a little movie, spy movie, A
oh, that's
Man
right.
Called Flintstone.
Wow, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right. And we're leaving, I'm sure, a lot of things out. Well, there were any number of episodes, TV episodes, particularly situation comedies, the Brady Bunch, that kind of thing, where the younger kids would get enamored with James Bond or do a James Bond takeoff
yeah.
episode, something like that, and Danny Bonaducci and the Partridge Family and all that.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of my favorite ever James Bond spoofs. They did Steve Martin did a great take on James Bond on Saturday Night Live. It was James Bond like on vacation where he wasn't getting all his things paid for by he's using his government credit card. And it shows him coming in. Of course, he didn't attempt to look like Bond. Steve is
Right.
white hair. He was wearing a tuxedo though. And he comes in the casino, it's playing the Bond music and everything. And, they said, what would you like to drink, Mr. Bond? And he's like, how about a, vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. And he goes, how much is that? Every time they tell him something, he'd go, ooh. How about a beer instead?
Do you have a price list?
Foreign or domestic? He goes, we might be
Bond.
domestic.
Bond never cared what anything cost.
He was like super duper cheap, when he wasn't on the government dole. That was the whole point.
Public servant.
But I love it. Ooh.
Hey, you take away those government credit cards and everybody starts looking at the price. That's for sure. I've got a feeling I'm leaving something out. Oh, what about the toys? James Bond, for a couple of years, the Sears catalog in 1966, Ron, had at least one page. I think it was 2 pages.
Yeah,
completely devoted.
Yeah.
To either James Bond toys or spy toys. The attaché case, the James Bond attaché case that showed up in maybe From Russia with Love, I think. I'm not sure.
It was. That was the first time he did the attaché case.
And with the knife
the gold sovereigns and the little knives and throwing knives and all that.
Coins, money, gold coins he could use if he got stuck without any money. But anyway, all that was all those were. I mean, I had a Man from U.N.C.L.E. Toy gun with it had a. I remember it had a little pop-in ammunition. I can't even think of what you call it. The little thing that pops into the handle like on a 45. But that and all kinds of binoculars and you could get the case. I never got the case. I just had a little cardboard box. I threw everything in. But it had a Man from U.N.C.L.E. badge, a triangular badge that you could wear, and of course that didn't last long. But and I got a gun once that had like a fold-out handle, and that was a big thing for a while. Is the spies would have a gun and they'd fold the handle out and it made it into more of a rifle.
Yeah.
Equipment. And all that was at its height when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. Got all those things. But boy, I mean, toys were everywhere. A lot of money was made from the James Bond
I've got
guns.
a
And
few Hot Wheels James Bond cars.
yeah. Oh,
I've got a Aston Martin, like '64 Aston Martin. I've got the white Lotus Esprit from The Spy Who Loved Me. Got that one. I feel like there's one more I've got. I can't remember. But
you would have thought they'd have done a lot more
yeah,
with the car theme
yeah,
because I'm sure you could get a model set to build a model of an Aston. But that's something you don't see much anymore.
yeah.
Models. I don't think kids build models
It's funny how
anymore.
the different James Bonds use different cars too. Like they had the Aston Martin with Sean Connery, and then right near the end of his run, he actually drove a Mach 1 in a lot of scenes.
Oh, okay.
Mustang, and because that had just come out,
Well,
and
marketing.
yep, and let's see, Roger Moore always drove a Lotus Esprit, and let's see, Pierce Brosnan drove Beamers.
Would would you say the Miami Vice had a lot of James Bond feel to it,
Yeah, they
but
drove
much more
what was that,
serious?
Lamborghini they
Yeah,
drove?
when you're talking
Yeah,
about those cars,
yeah,
Sonny Crockett pulling up
yeah.
in these various exotic cars and that I mean James Bond. You still see a lot of James Bond influences around.
Anytime there's any scene in a casino and shows, a lot of times somebody almost always makes some sort of quip or something, about wearing a tuxedo coming into a casino,
Right, right. I'm sure we're missing a few, but I think we hit most of it. Secret
Yeah.
Agent, Get Smart, The Avengers, The Saint, It Takes a Thief,
Hmm.
The Girl from Uncle. Even
Yeah.
mentioned that, which is one of the worst ones actually. Jethro, my favorite, I think, and James Coburn, our man Flint. You can't say that. We may have to dedicate a whole show to Dean Martin
Well,
just
the,
because.
the Austin Powers movies, which I liked a lot,
Oh, that's
were
right.
they were he did those. That was like sort of an homage to his dad because his dad loved James Bond and loved like the Matt Helm and In Like Flint stuff. So he kind of did a
That's
mishmash of Bond and
that's right.
all that. And if you ever watch those old movies, boy, you can really see it.
Well,
The look that he lifted directly from all those movies.
and he went kind of the Don Adams direction too. He made his spy hero not a real attractive guy. In
Yeah.
fact, he was the opposite of it.
Yep.
Actually, probably looked more like a real spy than James
Yeah.
Bond ever did. I think real
And
spies don't want
incredibly
to.
overconfident, just like Don
Oh
Adams is
gosh, yeah,
get smart.
yeah. You.
Unnecessarily overconfident.
Oh, I don't think in real life you want a spy that when he walks in the room, every woman in the place gets a neck injury from her head snapping around to look at him.
Yeah.
I just, everybody
You
goes, yes,
kind
we
of want
remember
you
him.
kind of
He
want
was in
somebody
there.
that's like vanilla covered wallpaper.
Oh yeah, you want to fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey Ron, song of the week. Now we can talk about it. Johnny Rivers, Secret Agent Man, the theme song from
Love that
Secret
song.
Agent. Oh, what a great song.
What a
Johnny
great
Rivers, that song
opening
went to,
riff.
oh,
Can't beat that.
that's the only controversy about the song. I think about 19 people claim they wrote it, including Johnny Rivers, and I think
Yeah.
Johnny Rivers had the worst case, is what I understand. But because it had shown up, that was not original with Johnny Rivers, by the way. He did
Yeah.
not write it. Who did write that? That was written by P.F. Sloan and Steve Barry, and it was written for another situation and
Mm-hmm.
released. Oh, by the way, appeared on record in a Man from Uncle album that
Oh,
was
wow.
released, and it was sung by some band. I can't remember the name of the band, but
Yeah.
Johnny Rivers took it. Actually, Secret Agent. It was never released as a single. It was
Hmm.
just on. It was just an album cut, and
Yeah.
then when they were putting together the series Secret Agent or planning to bring it over to the United States, the American networks thought, well, it needs a catchy theme song,
Yeah.
and they brought Johnny Rivers in, found that song, and Johnny Rivers made it his own. It was number 3 in the country, and they had a 1-minute version they used on the show, and then just expanded it rather easily to a 3-minute version. And it just really stands up as a song. It doesn't come across like many theme songs do, like, oh, we took this little 30-second snippet and then just kind of do it over and over again until we make a whole song out of it. But just a rocking song. And
Yeah.
what year did they come out? 1966. They're giving you a number and taking away your
Your
name.
name.
Kind of a
Yeah,
reference
you
to.
made me think of something else real quick. There was a, this isn't very famous, but yet another James Bond takeoff. It was done probably 20, 25 years ago, maybe.
What?
Um, let's see. It's the guy who played Lenny on Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, I never knew those guys' names.
Well,
Lenny and
anyway,
Twiggy. I know that.
it was like a Disney type, like Disney movie of the week or whatever, too.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
name of the movie was Secret Agent Man, and they played that song liberally throughout. And he was a goofball secret agent. And it was
Well,
pretty funny, and it was
as
pretty good too,
as
as I
opposed to
remember.
Secret Agent, it was Secret Agent Man.
Yeah,
And
that's
what
what
about
his movie
Spy
called,
Kids?
Secret
We
Agent
could
Man. Yeah,
we could go on and on. Spy Kids
yeah,
is still here today with us. There'll be a rip off James Bond rip off next summer probably,
yeah,
and we'll all go watch it and we'll all enjoy it because that's the endless influence of James Bond. Boomer
yeah.
Bongo Boulevard, Ron. We talked about James Bond and James Bond's influence in our
That will
inimitable way.
continue forward.
Don't forget to smash the button too and be a
Yeah.
subscriber.
All right, smash it hard.